I am Australian, but the history of my family does not lie in convict Australia. Instead, in those who commissioned the ships. As far back as my family history can be traced, we are English. Such history even lies in the names of my relatives, notably my great-granddad, Alfred Herbert Gordon English, a name so fitting for a life dedicated to his country. Alfred Herbert Gordon English was born on the 17th of September 1898 in the citadel of Cairo, Egypt. His father, my great-great-granddad, returned from the Battle of Omdurman on the day of his birth, and as such, Alfred Jr. was named in his honour. The young Alfred chose to follow in his father's military footsteps, leaving school in January 1914, aged 15, in order to join the Royal Navy as a volunteer boy seaman just before the outbreak of World War I. Alfred served on a number of ships before joining the HMS Lion in 1914, a British battlecruiser and flagship of the British Grand Fleet. In April of 1916, in his 18th year, Alfred was promoted to the position of ordinary telegraphist, the seaman responsible for transmitting telegram messages from the ship. 1 month later, the HMS Lion led the British fleet into the Battle of Jutland, a battle considered to be the last great European sea battle, during which the British fleet engaged the entire German fleet. In many ways, HMS Lion was one of the most remarkable ships, as she was hit 15 times by German shells during the Battle of Jutland. She lost her forward turret in a massive explosion that cost the lives of 6 of her officers and 89 of her crewmen. During this incident, the young Alfred was in the telegraphy cabin, sitting beside his best friend Fred. As the shells hit, Alfred suffered minor burns and abrasions, but, as the random chance of war would have it, Fred was hit in the stomach and mortally wounded by several pieces of shrapnel. Alfred held Fred, trying to stem the bleeding by putting his hand over the horrible wounds, but Fred died in Alfred's arms. When he realised Fred was gone, Alfred removed his hand, which had shrapnel embedded in it, as he knew he had to keep broadcasting messages, and for this brave act he was later honoured with the oak leaf emblem. After this tragic event, the HMS Lion was rendered with very little power and forced to withdraw from the battle. It took the ship and her accompanying battle cruisers 2 days to reach the safety of the shore. I can't even begin to fathom what my great-granddad experienced in those 2 days, hidden under the decks of the ship, in the dark in order to preserve power, believing at any moment that the listing, groaning ship might capsize or be sunk by a German U-boat. After Jutland, Alfred served out the war in the Royal Navy, winning the British War Medal and the Victory Medal. He left the Lion in October 1916 and served after that on HMS Verdun. As war ended, Alfred stayed in the Royal Navy until his honourable free discharge in February 1920, returning home to the town of Warsaw. A year later, in 1921, Alfred joined the police force and married Beatrice Lely. Alfred was quickly promoted to sergeant, serving in this position until he retired at the age of 60 in 1958. During World War II, Warsaw was bombed several times as munition factories were nearby. As everyone else hid in the air raid shelters, German bombs overhead, Alfred patrolled the streets at night, making sure no lights were showing. My great-granddad's journals, discovered after his death, noted that pulling dead children from the rubble of such bombs was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Alfred and Beatrice had 2 daughters, Meg, born in 1926, and Marion, born 18 years later in 1944. Marion married Tony Murray, and their eldest son is my dad. Alfred died shortly after my mum and dad married in 1989, aged 91. I never met my great-granddad, but that does not mean his brave service to his country during 2 world wars has not affected my life. Whilst I now call myself Australian, I am proud of the English history that lies within the life of my great-granddad, Alfred, Herbert, Gordon, English.